Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us in person and also on hybrid model. We have some of our colleagues and some delegate and some staff online and in audience here. So thank you for joining us for our June 1st meeting, 2023. And it's a beautiful day, so we have a packed agenda, but we'll try to get you out of here as soon as we can. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this meeting is being held on unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. I'll ask Kelly to have a roll call, please.
Councillor Brown,
Here.
Councillor Kitts,
Here.
Councillor Luloff,
Shisi.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Present.
and Chair DeRose. You have quorum.
Thank you, Kelly. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as item 4.1 and 4.2 on today's agenda. For the items just mentioned, only those who made oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendment are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within the 90 days of receipt of this application for zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to the consideration by City Council on June 14, 2023, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. We have any declaration of interest? Seeing none. Number 3, can we have a confirmation minute for ERAC of May 4, 2023? Confirmed.
Confirm, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we have 3 items in the agenda. We'll start with first one is 4.1 bylaw amendment zoning 40 Carlside Circle. And we have no presentation, we have no delegation, no correspondence, but I also, from my understanding, we have representation if we have any question on the item. The applicants is online if we have a question, but I'll ask him if we'll carry that one. He'll be, I think he shouldn't be, he doesn't want to speak, if I'm correct on that. A report recommendation that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 40 Carlside Circle as shown in document 1 from RR2 9R to 001A to rezone the severed lands in conformity with the Canadian Golf and Country Club plans and to rezone the retained parcel from RR2 9R to RR2 to meet minimum zoning provision as detailed in document 2, and 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation detail section of this report to include as part of the brief explanation and a summary and written or oral public submission to the prepared by the city, by the office of the city clerk and submitted to council in a report titled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of June 14, 2023, subject to submissions received between the publication of this report and the time of the council decisions. Any questions? Comment? Can we carry that?
Carried.
Carried.
And that was carried. Thank you very much. 4.2. Again, no presentation, no delegation, no correspondence. Applicant is here if we require any questions. And the report recommendation that the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 1476 Century Road and 5758 First Line Road as shown in document 1 to permit the existing uses as a detailed in document 2. And number 2, that Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation detail section of this report be included as a part of the brief explanation and a summary of written and oral public submissions to be prepared by the office of the city clerk and submitted to council in a report titled Summary and of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act explanation requirement at the city council meeting of June 14, 2023, subject to submissions received between the publication of this report and the time of council decision. Any question or comment? Can we carry that one?
Carried.
Thank you very much. And that was carried too. 5.1. We have a motion from Councillor Kelly, and it is in the report, and I think we have a delegation. The committee will be accepting, listening to the delegation, then we can debate the motion after, if that's possible. We have Mr. Luc Grenier. Mr. Grenier, please. Thank you very much for coming this morning, and we'll give you 5 minutes to the committee to. You gotta press the button, please. Don't worry, it's good now.
It's good now?
Yes.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'd just like to start by saying that I'm not opposed to paying CILP fees, and I've never asked them to be waived. I've just asked them to be reduced. And you know, I brought you a copy of my invoice and my building permits if you guys care to see, but you know, the CILP fees amount to $21,741 for our permit fees, which is $1,500 more than the regular development fees. So you know, it's 40% of our total fees just for parkland. I said, I've been trying to get some explanation for this. I know the intent of the fees and what it's for, but I just find it's just disproportionate to what we are getting for services. You know, and it's been very frustrating to get any type of explanation from city staff. So the responses from the city has been from, I don't know, we've just been tasked to collect and enforce well, you can always appeal it. But not a single person was able to direct me to anyone that could provide me with a reasonable explanation as to these fees. But everyone said that the fees are extremely high. Everybody agreed to that. Like I said, I know what the fees are for and the intent of the bylaw. So just, sorry, I'm not used to public speaking, so. Like, I just want to understand why it represents such a significant portion of our invoice for our building permit. You know, our lot is located on Morris Island, which is literally on the border of the city of Ottawa. Like on the other side of when we stand on the lot, we look out the Arnprior and the province of Quebec. We are literally on the city limits. As far as I know, it's an unserviced lot. The only thing that the city provides is garbage collection and road maintenance. You know, and there is no official city plans for new parks, nowhere near us. And as far as I know, the closest park is within 8 kilometers, and the next after that is 12 kilometers. The city, that particular lot has been in private hands for over 50 years. There's nothing around us. And you know, I got extremely frustration trying to get an explanation for this. So I had to reach out to Councillor Kelly, and so far he's been the only one supportive of our issue, and he's been trying, you know, working hard to try and get some resolution for us. And you know, my understanding, he's getting a lot of pushback on his motion. And when he asked me to come and speak to you guys, and you know, honestly, I was like, my first thought was, what's the point? You know, I've grown so skeptical at this point. Is like, there's no point in coming. But then I started thinking about it, and I think it's really up to you guys to tell me what we are getting for $21,000. It's I don't know. The fees just seem extremely high. And just the way the fees are calculated, there seems to be some unfairness to that. I know of another fellow that's just in the same ward. He bought 160 acres, severed 5 acres, and he's building on the 5 acres. His fees are less than half of ours. They're $10,000, just because our property happens to be on the waterfront and it's assessed at a higher value. Our fees are considerably higher. I'm not getting twice the services that he's getting. We're getting the exact same services, which to this point, I still don't know what we're getting. I said, and then, to make things worse, we had to pay the city $500 to get an appraisal. And the appraisal came in at the exact dollar amount that we paid for the land. So I don't think there was very extensive research that had to be done or was done. Like to the dollar, it came exactly to the dollar, and we had to pay the city to determine what the city is going to charge us. To me, doesn't make much sense. So I understand you guys are concerned about creating a precedent with this motion, and I do appreciate your situation, but at the same time, I would ask that you would be more concerned about doing what's right than what's creating a precedent. So I could go on and on about some of the discussions I've had with some of the city staff and whatnot, but at this point, like I said, I'm a little skeptical that anything can be done or will be done. So I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grenier. We appreciate actually you coming and put your concern on a public record, and then it was encouraging from you to come and speak to us, and of course to address the concern. And I'm gonna see if the committee have a question for you, and then we'll deal with the detail with the motion in a bit. But Councilor Kelly.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Grenier, for taking the time to come in here and explain this to the committee. I don't have any questions for Mr. Grenier, but I do have a question for staff that came out of something Mr. Grenier said. So.
Yeah, we'll deal with it. We're gonna deal with question to staff after. If any have question for Mr. Grenier, you're good. Councilor Luloff and Councilor Kitt. Mr. Grenier, thank you very much for coming, and we're gonna move to question for staff, and then we'll deal with the motion. Thank you. And I think we have Kevin.
Can't do that.
We know who you are, so thank you very much, Kevin, for being here this morning. I know Councilor Kelly have some question for you, and
I know I would thank you very much, Kevin, for the time you've taken over the last month and a half now on this file. And I guess I've got a decent understanding now on your position and why it is where it is. So one question that I had for you, just out of what Mr. Grenier was explaining, he mentioned another property owner who was paying significantly less in cash in lieu of parkland. Is that because he severed a property and created a property? So at that point, he was able to pay a flat rate rather than a percentage of the cost of the land or the value of the land?
I'm not, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'm not exactly familiar with that scenario, or that particular property, but the scenario you mentioned, if it was a severance, there is a reduced rate. And it's not a flat rate. It is still based on land valuation, but there is a reduced calculation to 400 square meters when there is a severance. And this applies primarily to, if you consider farm properties that might be divided into two. So that's one new home coming forward, but it might be an extremely large property. And that's why the severance rate applies, which restricts the calculation to 400 square meters, but it is still based on the valuation of that property.
Okay. And can you explain, I don't know, I'm sure that wasn't your program design, but could you explain the rationale between why one person would have that option and another landowner would not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the question is regarding why severance versus not severance, the reason for severance was we actually had a discussion with Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee in 2022 when we were developing the bylaw to say, how does this apply or how does it not? So the difference between a residential lot development, such as the Loggers Way one that is here today, versus a very traditional family farm changing into two hands. So that was the request that was made of the committee at the time, and that is why there is a differentiation. The 400 square meters was purely an understanding that there's a room allocated for a new home, and then the rest would be a farm.
I mean, when I heard Mr. Granier's, when I first got his call and knowing the balance, the cash in lieu of parkland balance for Ward 5, and then seeing what this gentleman was being asked to pay, I have to admit I was quite shocked to hear that he was being asked to pay basically a third of what Ward 5 had at its disposal for cash in lieu of parkland. So for me, it was the reason we're here today is just because I didn't think that was fair, that he didn't have the option to pay the lower calculated rate. I'll stop using the term of flat rate. And so that's why I wanted to, and in speaking with Kevin, I just wanted to reduce it. I've never, and he's right. Even in the rural areas, I think there's the attitude that, you know, we shouldn't have to pay cash in lieu of parkland, but that's absolutely not the argument that I'm making or that I think Mr. Grenier is making here. I think making it more fair, though, is the question, and that's why we're here. And to do that, we weren't able to reduce the fee because that would have required a change in the bylaw. Is that correct, Mr. Murray?
Yes, through your chair, that is exactly it. Yeah.
And the reason for that being so difficult was because of the number of appeals that we're seeing on cash in lieu of parkland at the moment.
Again, yes, that is correct.
Okay. So that's why we're doing a waiver, because that doesn't require a change in bylaw. So that's how we ended up here. And the reason I wanted to waive just the ward portion was because that doesn't affect any other wards, but I do admit that could cause a precedence and other people to ask for the same thing. So I understand the concerns. I hope that we could waive the ward portion of Mr. Grenier's fee so that we get down to sort of the lower calculated fee that other people do enjoy outside of going to pull a building permit. So, and I do kind of just fundamentally think that those creating the lot in the first place should be responsible for that parkland and cash in lieu of parkland. So I'm going to leave my argument at that. I think the second part of my motion, I don't think anyone has a real issue with. It's just a matter of taking a look at options in terms of making a change there to make it more fair. And the first part would be to waive the ward portion to reduce it to about half for Mr. Grenier. So I will leave it at there and see if any of my colleagues have questions or comments or anything they want to raise.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. And I think I have Councillor Kitts have a question, and then Councillor Lulaf. I'll start with Councillor Kitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I do feel for this resident. I do feel like the fees sound exorbitant. And I've dealt with some similar issues in my ward. My hesitation with supporting this today is fairness, you know, across other wards and other people that have paid those fees. So I'm wondering, is this something that can and will be reviewed through the DC bylaw review, where we'll be able to, because I think we need a policy across the board. And I'm hoping that will be the venue to relook at this.
Thank you, Councillor Kitt.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Kitts, this isn't necessarily a DC bylaw review. This is actually the cash in lieu of parkland. So this is the park dedication bylaw, as we mentioned, is already under appeal and will be coming back to council for a form of revision once we receive settlement. So we can address it at that point. And then in addition to that, our Parks and Rec Facilities Master Plan directed us to review the cash in lieu of parkland policy. So there is also an opportunity there coming up, but we need to get through our process with the Ontario Land Tribunal first and foremost, and then we can follow up after that.
Okay, and so what are timelines roughly that we're looking at? Is this something we'll be dealing with later this year?
Mr. Chair, yes, absolutely. We are motivated to resolve our Ontario Land Tribunal issues for the primary concerns against the cash in lieu of parkland bylaw. My best estimation, earliest estimation is September. My latest estimation is November.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kitt. Councillor Lulaf, please.
And thank you very much. To the best of your knowledge, Kevin, has CIL been paid into on this property in the past?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Luloff, no, we were not able to discover any previous CIL dedication for this land. And this is the reason why this comes up now. The park dedication bylaw of today, I did submit an information report, but the park dedication bylaw of today is now encumbering lands that were never previously considered for this. Just across the street from these chambers is a community that has seen massive intensification without any CIL benefit just because of the size of the lots that were there as well. The Planning Act actually instructs us to take it at building permit where we didn't in the past. And I admit this would be a surprise to people who didn't know about this because we had a practice since 2009 of not collecting it at building permit. But we have been instructed through our own processes that got us to today, whether it was the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan or through the bylaw approval, to now consider it a building permit to satisfy what the Planning Act says.
Thanks, Kevin. Has there ever been an exemption of this nature granted before, where the ward portion or the city portion on a piece of property has been waived?
In my experience, the only waiver of cash in lieu of parkland we provided was to the National Capital Commission for the two park portions that are being provided by the NCC instead of the city at Zibi.
Understood. Okay. And what is the closest piece of city property to the Loggers Way property that could be enhanced with this, $20,000?
Mr. Chair, I did not take a look at a global map. I did put in my report that we tend to collect, and in the case of Ward 5, the funds are collected and pooled into larger projects. In the case of Ward 5, we are currently undertaking a significant improvement and expansion at the Corkery Community Center. So we tend to go with a hub model in the rural areas because nothing is ever really all that close. But what we try to do is provide enhanced services wherever we can. So Corkery was the last most significant expenditure from the former ward councillor's dedication. And then prior to that, we also did a significant expansion using a combination of CIL and other funds at Constance Bay Community Center.
Okay, thanks so much. I don't know if this is more for Adam, but do we have any other similar files that will be coming before us where an amount such as this would need to be collected in CIL? Any files that you foresee coming forward where this sort of issue may come up again?
It's hard to tell, Mr. Chair, because in this case, when it's based on a building permit application, it's not something that comes through planning services. It goes directly to building code services. So we do assess cash in lieu where appropriate for plans of subdivision or site plan control applications. But those are not at the individual building permit level.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Luloff, and thank you, Adam, for the answers. I just wanna, I thank you very much, Kevin, for the explanation, and I understand. I personally, I know the motion is on the screen and then in front of us to deal with it. We have two, therefore be it resolved. But I personally, I look at it from a CIL perspective. Councillors in the rural area really don't have a lot, sometimes much choices. Sometimes we do upgrades, like we heard from Kevin in Constance Bay, Buckham Bay Community Center, those expensive expansions and massive in Corkery Community Facility. But also in my ward, I'm building a off-dog leash for my community. And sometimes when city staff want to upgrade a park, sometimes we're short on adding a component or another. We want to add another slide or another kids between 1 and 5 component to the park, and sometimes limited, the funding is limited. And those dollar that comes into the CIL and cash in lieu for counselors under us to be able to spend and improve those community park. And sometimes the parks we have situation that we want to add something to the park of an outdoor rink or something like that. And those money, sometimes we cannot in the same cycle of that year go and get them inside our budget. So council sometimes have some of those dollar to be able to use to improve community parks and be able to address some community association, and not necessarily for this case, Mr. Grenier, I understand, not necessarily should be in the backyard of any resident, but the community, all the community on the whole benefit. And it's hard for me to sit here today, and I know that we're going through appeal and our staff has been working hard with this, and there is no legal rationale or planning rationale for that specific decision today to make and to reduce those costs. So I really hard for me as a chair of Agricultural Affairs Committee sit here today and support that. And I'm sorry, sometimes it's like, sometimes we have to make a different and difficult decision, but that also, like Mr. Grenier mentioned, that set the precedence, but really we're not really much about that, but we're gonna be fair for everybody. But the second part, which is I wanna thank Councillor Kelly to bring it to our attention, which is we're going to do a review, and that will be a step forward to be able to making sure that we're getting our fair assessment for our rural resident. And for that reason, I cannot support the first part of the motion, but will be supporting the second part. But I don't know if you, Councillor, you want to wrap up on your motion, or we can just. Because we're gonna split the motion on the vote.
Yeah, just go ahead.
You okay with that?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming down and taking part.
Kevin, please.
Thank you. I just realized I need to correct something I said to Councillor Kitts. She asked me about timelines, and I said earliest of September, latest November. I need to add a caveat to that, and that is the hopeful expectation that our mediation is successful. If that mediation is not successful, we are looking at an OLT hearing, which would occur end of October, early November, within typically a 6-month or so window before final decision. I believe that's why in here you'll see a recommendation that says Q3 2024 for if there is additional recommendations we can make. That is the reason for that.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Councillor Kidd.
Yeah, no, thanks for that clarification. I was just seeking to know if that Q3 2024 was realistic. So thanks for that.
Thank you. And thank you for the clarification. And if there is no more question on that or comment, can we're going to split the motion and we're going to vote on them separately. So we'll go first for the therefore be resolved City Council waive the 60% of the cash in lieu of parkland fees required for the pending building permit at 5703 Loggers Way, being in ward portion. Can we vote on that one separately? Councillor, go ahead. We'll call the vote.
Councillor Luloff,
Unfortunately, no.
Councillor Kitts,
No.
Councillor Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and Chair Drews.
No.
2 yeas and 3 nays.
Thank you. And the second motion be further resolved that the City of Council direct staff to review the parkland dedication bylaw to determine whether the bylaw should be amended to extend the transition clauses for rural buildings permit outside of village where lands were subdivided for individual residential lot purposes prior to the new bylaw coming in force, and report back to Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee by Q3 2024. Is that motion carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you very much. And can we receive the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend that council receive this report for information?
Received.
Okay, and that conclude our agenda for now. Any in-camera items? We have none. And number 7, we have open mind sessions. And first on the list is Jane Wilson from Ottawa Wind Concerns. We have a presentation, and Ms. Wilson, you have 5 minutes. I'm sure you've done the rules, and you know we're going to give you an opportunity to get the presentation up, and we'll give you 5 minutes when you're ready. I know. Okay,
Hey,
thank
good,
you. Go ahead.
good morning, and thank you again for this opportunity. I'm here on behalf of Ottawa Wind Concerns, which is a community group formed in 2009. We have currently about 300 people on our list of supporters. Most of them are in Ward 21 and Ward 5, but it goes across the city, including Osgood and Metcalfe as well, and Cumberland. For myself, for those I haven't met, I'm a retired registered nurse and a healthcare writer and editor. I worked for Health Canada, Public Health Agency of Canada, Canada Post, and for a while as a volunteer, I was on the board of the Environmental Health Association of Ontario. So those are my concerns, is health and environment. What we're doing here today is we did, as you know, subsequent to the official plan, city staff is working on some new zoning bylaws. And among those are going to be bylaws that apply to the development of renewable energy. We have made previous presentations to ARAC, and can I have the first slide? So I won't go through those again, but we did in previous committee meetings go over some of the concerns that are common to renewable energy developments, specifically noise, pollution, and safety, but also the effectiveness of wind power projects for the money. Industrialization of communities is a big concern because that's essentially what it is. Altered landscape, the cost on electricity bills, and the effect on wildlife. And next slide. So with the coming bylaw, new bylaw process, we thought we would hold some very informal information sessions. So we did one in Kinburn and one in North Gore. And I don't think it was the promise of free butter tarts that got everybody out, but we had several hundred people come to the events, which was really great to see people. We did learn that people know a lot more about wind power now than they did in 2009 when the Green Energy Act was passed. So it's been in the media a lot. This is an article from the recent Farmers Forum. Manotick Messenger had an article recently, and I guess the week edition this week has got an excellent letter on wind power and whether it achieves the goals that people set for it. So what we heard from the people coming to our meetings, can I have the, no, I think that's it. Concerns about the wind turbine noise pollution seem to be top of the list. People are aware that the health impacts, if you can't sleep, you're not going to feel very well. And there are health problems that go out from that. People mention their children. They're very worried about what noise pollution and sleep deprivation would do for their children. They're worried about the impact on electricity bills. People just feel they cannot pay anymore. And we know after the Green Energy Act, the Auditor General said electricity bills went up 250% in Ontario, mostly due to wind and solar. So people are concerned about that. They're also very aware that 600-foot or the equivalent of 60-story office tower turbines are an industrial land use, and they don't feel that's compatible with homes and other uses in rural communities. I forgot about livestock, but I had several people come up and say, what about my cows? What about my sheep? What about my chickens? That people in the dairy community in particular are aware of the effect on dairy cows and milk production and the effect on the health of the livestock. People also mentioned the price tag for the 57 billion of energy evolution, specifically the 4 billion that is proposed to be spent on wind power. They're just wondering where that money is going to come from. And also people are aware of the fact that wind turbines, and I don't know much about solar panels, but also they're not currently recyclable. So who's going to bear the cost of the decommissioning and the waste? We're concerned a lot about waste in Ottawa right now. What's going to happen when you have these huge wind turbines and those parts have to be put somewhere? So these are the things that people are talking about. And they really want to know how the city staff and how the bylaw process is going to address these concerns. Next slide. We did develop a petition for a 2-kilometer setback. This is mainly for noise, excuse me, and health.
Just want to give you a warning, you still have another minute, so.
Okay, and a US acoustician told me that's a reasonable compromise. So we've communicated that to city staff. Again, to conclude, our goal is really just trying to help inform people in rural communities. And we've been trying to work with city staff to help them have information they may not have in this process of bylaw development. One city staffer said, we want to do the right thing. We all want the right thing. I might say last Friday, the IESO announced their new procurement is going to be launched in September. That's 2,200 megawatts of, we don't know what type of technologies will be proposed, but it's certainly procurement is coming. So that's my, if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your presentation and your concern. I'm gonna have a question from Councillor Brown. And then-
Thank you, Chair. And Jane, I just want to thank you for coming out and delegating today. I know it's a long drive from beautiful North Gore, but we always appreciate seeing you in person. Chair, I don't have a question for the delegate, but I do have a question for staff, so I can hold them till my other colleagues have had an opportunity.
Perfect. We have any question for the delegation? Seeing none, I thank you very much for coming out, and we're gonna have some question for staff, but we appreciate your presentation and I understand your concern. And I know it's raised a lot of concern in the community, especially during election. And we kept explaining to the resident what the rationale behind it. And I know there is some communication between staff and yourself, and I'm familiar with all of them, but we do appreciate you took the time today to be in here with us and to address those concerns. And we agree with your concerns, so thank you very much. Councillor Brown, I think we have Carol Radias on the call.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question to staff and Carol, if you're on the line, would you be able to provide a quick update as to the motion that was approved by council earlier on this year that spoke directly to renewable energy zoning and where that is in the process?
Thank you, Councillor Brown, and through the chair. We are working on those draft provisions at this time. We've actually hired a consultant who has expertise in this area to assist us with the development of the provisions for the various types of renewable energy generation facilities. And we will be delivering information and proposed provisions for review by the public in August, September of this year. And we'll be bringing an amendment as required before the end of the year.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Carol. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Carol. Have you done any, or what sort of public consultation have you done so far in terms of the design of these report or guidelines around renewable energy projects?
None so far. We don't have any front-facing information available for the public because we're still studying it right now. I can say that there is a discussion paper on climate change that was released earlier this year. And in that discussion paper, there's just very general consideration given to the official plan policies and in section 411 and the need to implement zoning provisions in accordance with those policies.
Do you think it would be beneficial to the process to hold some sort of public consultation to inform?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we will, as required by the motion, be consulting with Ottawa Hydro and all other interested stakeholders in that industry and of course with Ottawa Wind concerns.
Okay, good. And if there was a public meeting put on by a councillor or two or a group of councillors, would you be willing to come or send staff on your behalf?
Of course, yes, we would.
And then my other question is that I've seen quite a few other jurisdictions across Canada and the world put in regulations around particularly wind turbines, but all renewable energy projects. And just wondering, like I've seen Jane mentioned the 2 kilometer setback that they do have in some jurisdictions. I know there's some on the east coast of Canada that have implemented a 2 kilometer setback. Do you have a various range of distances that you may be looking at? Are you looking at other jurisdictions? Are you able to share any ideas or thoughts at this time as to what you may be thinking in terms of a setback?
We're considering everything you've mentioned. And that is why we've hired a consultant with expertise in the area. And we will be looking at separation distances ranging from 550 up to 2 kilometers for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. A quick question, Carol, probably if you can or you can't answer, maybe planning stuff. Do we have any application that we know about as of today for a project like that so far in our city?
I think Adam might be best to respond to that question.
I like to put him on the spot sometime. Thanks, Carol.
We've had various inquiries, Mr. Chair, about different types of energy generation projects, but we do not have any formal applications before us that I'm aware of at this time.
Thank you. That's very helpful to know. Thank you very much. And I do know that I know the concern that bring from resident, because south of me in Finch and in Eastern Ontario, I know what the wind turbine did to the communities, and from a health concern and also from many other concerns that they raise. So we do understand, and we need to learn from what happened in our other municipality. And I do appreciate Jane for you coming out here to speak with us, and we'll keep the community informed. I know rural councillors, really, we don't like to see some of those in our backyard, but we will be working collectively with our city staff and the policy, making sure we will be very making sure our community are protected. So thank you very much for that. Our next open mic session is Andrea Sisson from Rural Woodland, Ottawa, and I know you have a presentation, and also we'll give you 5 minutes and when you're ready.
Will the presentation be? Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
we're fine.
Perfect.
Whenever you're ready, we'll start it. We haven't started the timer for you, so don't worry.
Okay, so go.
Go.
My name's Andrea Sissons and this is Pam Childs. We are members of Rural Woodlands Ottawa. We're on the steering committee. Rural Woodlands Ottawa is a volunteer group, and we're trying to raise awareness about the enormous amount of tree loss in rural Ottawa and come up with some solutions for that. Next slide, please. So a little bit of the background of the problem is the woodlands and hedgerows in rural Ottawa are disappearing. They're being removed at an unsustainable rate. As you can see in the slide here, it's escalating. That slide shows over 10 years, and you can see the trend is more and more forests are being taken out every year. In 2021, 1,300 acres was removed from our landscape. Next slide, please. In many areas in rural Ottawa, we can't even meet the minimum of 30% forest cover that's required for good ecological health. And the numbers that are presented representing forest cover in Ottawa are sadly a little bit skewed. As you can see by that photo there, for example, the Marlborough Forest has about 80% forest cover, and that number gets worked into the total forest cover for Ottawa, yet right beside it is an area, and there are many areas that have 20%, which means that no ecological functioning there in that area. Next slide, please. Ottawa's new official plan sets a tree canopy target of 40%. Well, we are losing rate. We're at 35% now, and we don't seem to be trending upwards. The city also states that they're going to take a no net loss approach with respect to forest cover outside the urban area. But how are they going to do that? How are they going to have a no net loss approach when people on private land are removing forests? There's nowhere to replant the 500 hectares that are taken out every year. Next slide, please. So we are big proponents of carrots, not sticks. We don't believe something like a rural tree bylaw would have the desired effect. In fact, I think if there was mention of such a thing, you'd see forests disappear so fast before that bylaw ever came in place. Incentives are a much better way of dealing with it. So one proposal that we have is that the tax ratios, currently tax ratios favor farming over forests. You get a lower tax rate on your farmland than you do on your forest land, even with a managed forest plan. And landowners often find that managed forest incentive plan is a little onerous and overwhelming to contemplate, especially you don't actually really need to manage the forest for it to be providing value. So what we're proposing is that the city of Ottawa consider having another tax ratio for mature forests or natural forests that meet some sort of criteria that could be developed that are just left alone. That would, if you had it at 0.1, it would be a significant savings to the landowner and probably a good incentive to not convert that to yet another cornfield. That's one of our proposals. Next slide, please. The second proposal is about snow fences or hedgerows. So Ottawa spent almost $1 million last year in putting up snow fences and paying farmers to leave 6 rows of corn behind. If they were to pay a similar amount to the landowner, but have a permanent row of trees or a more vibrant hedgerow that actually had, some shrubs and some other benefits, they would save money in the long term. The farmer would be in the same place he is now. If he's paid the cost that he would have made for planting that land with corn or harvesting whatever, it would help with biodiversity, carbon capture, could provide pollinator habitat. It would save a lot of money for road maintenance. Like there's a lot of different benefits that could be accomplished. And once again, it's not at the cost of the landowner. In fact, probably from what I've seen, quite a bit of the land that is being farmed is actually, there's a few rows of corn that actually aren't on that farmer's land. There's quite a lot of it that's on the right of way anyway, that is actually belongs to the city. So it could be living snow fences could be part of a climate solution, and they could also help to deal with that no net loss strategy that the city has come up with. Next.
You'll finish your 5 minutes, but I'm going to give you another minute to wrap up.
Oh, you didn't give me the 1 minute warning.
I'm giving it to you right now.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
I did the same thing to the previous speaker, so I'm gonna do it.
Okay, thanks. Well, there's a few other benefits like they've talked about of the living snow fences. There's more than just stopping snow, right? And next slide, please. So we feel that compensating farmers and landowners for maintaining forests on their property is good public policy. Forests provide a public good, and the individuals who maintain and provide that should be compensated for doing so. And we think these might be two solutions that might be a win-win. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your presentation. I know we have questions from Councillor Brown, so.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd like to thank Pam and Andrea from coming out again, long drive from North Gore, but
We should have had a
great to
bus.
see, I was gonna
Oh,
say,
there are
great to
no
see half the
buses.
village here today. I just want to say that I know that I've been working with you through my office, and we've been meeting with city staff on moving a more of a rural perspective forward. And I'd like to say how refreshing it is to see that many of the green benefits and the efforts behind those don't have to just originate in urban Ottawa, and that we are trying to do our part in rural Ottawa. And I also appreciate the carrot approach instead of the stick approach. I think there's a lot more that we can do if we incentivize instead of punishing. And I'm very appreciative that you've included that in your presentation and shared it with all of us here today. So just an expression of gratitude, but thank you very much for coming out today.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation, and some of that stuff I hadn't thought of before. So thank you very much. And I know you were mostly focused on woodland and agricultural areas, but development does still occur in rural areas. And I wondered if you could share your perspective on the same sort of solutions, but in terms of new developments. Is that possible? Like that row of hedges or even keeping some of those mature trees? And in my conversations with developers, they've always stressed that when they have to come in and regrade a property, that the trees on the outside often die within a couple of years because of that. Have you put any thought into a solution in terms of that issue?
Well, I mean, ideally, it would be lovely to see a percentage of the natural forest that's there left in those developments, right? I mean, gosh, you drive up Eagleson and in the winter you can hardly get through, right? The snow and but we're focused mainly on the thing is that you could get a farmer to plant some trees, but once the development's in, I don't know. I mean, if it was put into the rules about making that development that you have to leave windbreaks, it would be great, right? And sort of alluding back to what Councillor Brown was saying, the thing I think about urban Ottawa is that they haven't recognized that rural forests benefit the city, right? Our rural forests are cleaning the water that the city people are drinking, and cleaning the air. It's sequestering the carbon that is emitted by cars. They spend an awful lot of time fussing over, urban trees, which are equally important, but they haven't until recently recognized that when 5 or 6 big trees are taken down in the glebe, 500 or 600 hectares of trees are taken down in the North Gore area.
Yeah.
And we don't talk in numbers of trees, we talk in numbers of acres of trees being removed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Any other question? We really appreciate you being here today, and thank you very much for highlighting some of the concern that you brought up, and we agree with you. So thank you on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And we have one more open mic session is Shirley Dolan. I think she's no stranger to Agricultural Welfare Committee. Nice seeing you. Good morning, Shirley. And you know the drill, you have 5 minutes. And I know also we received communication on May 29th from you, and it was distributed to our council colleague.
Thank you very much. It's very good to see all of you again. It's been a little while. And thank you. Some of my questions were actually answered, so that's great. Again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to discuss the new zoning bylaw and industrial wind turbines. This is the first opportunity that Ottawa residents have had to seek answers about what is contained in the energy evolution document. So in last council, past questions were met with the sentiment that I have interpreted, that we're not planning anything and nothing is going to happen because it's up to the province. It's no longer in the province's hands. It's in your hands, and very much so. I did send an email to the Renewable Energy Approvals Program, just asking about authority and responsibility. And I will send you a copy of that email. but they have firmly said that it is in the municipality's hands, that you are doing the zoning bylaws that will regulate where renewable energy goes. So it's really, really important, I think, that we get the new zoning bylaw right. There is a long runway on this, and I think that is good. So on May the 23rd, I submitted 8 questions, which you've seen, to the new zoning team. And I haven't received a response, but I can understand that because there were 8 questions, there were sub-questions, and they may be questions that would require a little bit of research. But I'm really looking forward to getting answers on some of those. I won't have time to address all 8 questions, but perhaps if I could speak to 3 of them for today. Just before I go into that, I also found the last presentation very interesting and welcome food for thought. And I'd just like to put this on the table that renewable energy, according to the official plan, is not allowed on prime agricultural land. That's my understanding. So if it's not allowed there, where does it go? How many trees will we be taking down in order to accommodate those projects? So just food for thought, and I hope we'll be thinking about that. So the one big issue for me, and there's many, but the one big issue for me being a rural landowner out in West Carleton is the protection of my well. I don't know whether or not you as councillors, rural councillors, have been following the North Kent, Chatham-Kent issue with wells up there. During the construction and after the construction of the industrial wind turbines, people started to complain about sediment in their wells. And I'll send you a picture of what it looks like. It's black. I believe it's called black shale that has gotten into their wells. And so they've been working 7 years trying to have a remedy for this. And recently there was a resolution at the Chatham-Kent, or a motion, I think it was, at the Chatham-Kent municipality to have the province look additionally at their wells. The people up there, I think there were 9 homeowners, maybe there were more, they actually had to have their well tested in the States, and they had to pay for it, and they did fundraising for that. And what it showed is that there were minute particulates in there that contained things like arsenic and a bunch of other things that I don't have off the tip of my fingers. What I'm hoping is that the city will be proactive, and if there is a wind turbine project that looks like it's going to be approved, is what will you do in terms of protection for the wells? Will there be some kind of program that allows people that are in the vicinity to have their wells tested?
Shirley, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to give you 1 more minute.
Thank you very much. It always takes longer to say what you want to say. So anyways, that is my prime question, I guess, today, is I'm hoping that you will make every effort to protect our wells. I also appreciate you asking about the timeline for the renewable energies, because that's different. And there isn't a timeline shown on the Engage Ottawa. So I'm very happy to hear that there was some news on that today. And the one thing I would like to see discussed, if you do have a public meeting, is how energy from the wind turbines is going to be distributed. As you know, we have Hydro Ottawa, we have Hydro One, I guess it is, where I get my energy. So where do all those little electrons go? And how do they get to my house? Do they get to my house? And how does that all work? It's very complex, I know. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Shirley. Don't move yet. We might have some question for you, and we appreciate the presentation. Councillor Kelly?
Questions,
Okay.
but I do want to thank Shirley and you know, if I do have any questions, I certainly know where to reach her and we are in contact regularly. So thank you very much. Always a pleasure, Shirley.
We're good. Thank you very much, Shirley. We appreciate your coming here today. I know you, I could say you're a friend of the Agricultural Welfare Committee. As usual, we appreciate your coming from West Carleton to address the concern, and I'm sure every rural councillor here heard you and listened to you, and we share the same concern you do. We also have wells in our homes, and we appreciate the effort and that you put into the presentation today, so to bring this awareness to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very
Hopefully
much.
you have a great weekend. Okay. And that conclude our open mic session. We appreciate all of them for coming here today. And this is lovely because that's the only committee actually. I say ERAC have those open mic session. They were important to keep them because we can engage with the community and we can hear their concern on a different format than delegation. So thank you. We have any notices of motion for consideration next meeting? Thank you. Any inquiry? I have seen none. Other business? Okay, we adjourn at 11:01. Thank you very much and hopefully you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.